You know what they say about playing with fire? Sometimes you think you're the one holding the match until you realize you're actually the kindling. Anyway, make sure to hit that like button if you enjoy hearing about relationship chaos, and don't forget to subscribe if you're new here. I'm Reese 29, and 8 months ago, I thought I had the perfect setup. My fiancé Kurt was this methodical, overly cautious control freak who planned every detail of our lives down to the minute. The type who actually read instruction manuals and color-coded our shared calendar, like we were running some corporate merger instead of just living together. Meanwhile, Colt from my office was everything Kurt wasn't. Spontaneous, dangerous, married with 2 kids, but couldn't care less about the consequences. The thrill of sneaking around became my drug. Hotel rooms during lunch breaks, late-night texts, while Kurt was in the shower lying so smoothly it scared even me sometimes. I'd perfected this double life where I could be the devoted fiancé planning our dream wedding during the day, then slip away to some downtown hotel where Colt would be waiting with that smirk that made my knees weak. Kurt would come home from his business trips with these thoughtful little gifts, my favorite chocolates a book he thought I'd like, and I'd kiss him while mentally comparing his gentle, measured affection to the way Colt grabbed me like he owned me. Between us, Kurt felt more like a roommate than a lover, always asking permission, always checking in, always so damn careful about everything. Where was the passion? Where was the man who just took what he wanted? Our wedding was 2 months away, everything booked and paid for with Kurt's savings account. Because of course he had a savings account with actual money in it while I lived paycheck to paycheck. I genuinely thought I could have both worlds, the security of marrying someone stable and the excitement of my secret addiction. I'd gotten so comfortable with the deception that I started getting sloppy saving Colt as gym buddy in my phone and leaving it unlocked around the house. That Tuesday night, I was in the shower, probably thinking about Colt's hands on me from our afternoon rendezvous when I heard the front door. Kurt wasn't supposed to be back from Chicago until Thursday, but apparently he'd finished early and wanted to surprise me. Some surprise. I stepped out of the bathroom in my towel hair dripping, expecting to find him unpacking in the bedroom. Instead, he was sitting on our couch with my phone in his hands, staring at the screen like it contained nuclear launch codes. "You're home early." I managed trying to keep my voice casual, even though my heart was hammering against my ribs. "I didn't know you were coming back tonight." He looked up at me, and I'd never seen his face like that before. Not angry, not hurt, just completely empty. Like he was looking at a stranger who'd broken into his apartment. "Who is he?" His voice was so calm it was terrifying. I tried to play dumb, asking what he was talking about, but he held up my phone. Colt's latest message was right there on the lock screen. Something about missing my mouth. I wanted to die. "Shrew, Jim from the gym." Kurt's voice had this weird flatness to it. Who is he really? When I lunged for the phone, he pulled it away and said 3 words that made my world tilt. "Pack a bag. Leave." That's when the panic really hit. I started crying, begging, throwing every manipulation tactic I'd ever learned at him. It wasn't what he thought. We could work through this. I still loved him. It was just physical. It didn't mean anything. But Kurt just kept repeating the same thing like a broken record. "Pack a bag and leave." I spent over an hour trying to crack through his wall of silence. I threw myself at his feet, literally begging, promising to quit my job, to cut all contact with Colt, to do whatever it took to make this nightmare go away. But he wouldn't even look at me, just sat there like a statue while I fell apart. Finally, I grabbed some clothes and makeup, still desperately trying to get him to talk, to fight, to show any emotion at all. When I left after midnight, he was still sitting on that couch staring at nothing. Somehow that terrified me more than if he'd screamed. While I was at my sister Henley's place, crying into her couch cushions and trying to figure out how to spin this disaster, Kurt was methodically building a case against me, like some prosecutor. He spent the entire night going through our shared accounts. The cloud storage we'd set up for wedding planning, our joint credit card statements, even my email that I'd forgotten he had access to. By morning, he had 8 months of evidence laid out in chronological order. Screenshots of every message, photos I'd sent Colt that made me cringe. Thinking about Kurt, seeing them, hotel receipts I'd stupidly autosaved to, our shared drive credit card charges at restaurants and bars, On nights, I claimed to be working late. When I texted him the next day, begging to talk, he didn't respond. That's when I made my first tactical error. I told my family it was just one night, one stupid mistake, hoping to minimize the damage and get them on my side. My mom, Rhett, was furious that I was throwing away 4 years over one slip-up and called Kurt's silence harsh and unforgiving. My sister kept saying people make mistakes, that's what marriage is about, working through the hard stuff together. I actually felt hopeful when Mom said she'd talk sense into him. Then Kurt sent me an email that made my stomach drop through the floor. The subject line was just timeline, and when I opened it, everything was there. Every screenshot, every receipt, every photo, the complete 8-month timeline of my affair laid out like evidence in a murder trial. My phone exploded. Mom calling Henley, calling everyone who'd just finished lecturing Kurt about forgiveness, suddenly very quiet. My one mistake narrative crumbled like wet paper, and I was exposed as someone who'd been living a double life for 8 months while planning a wedding with another man's money. The worst part wasn't even the evidence itself. It was how calm and thorough Kurt had been about collecting it, like he was handling some business transaction instead of the destruction of our 4-year relationship. When I showed up to get my things, I brought Henley and Mom as backup, thinking their presence might soften him or at least prevent him from being too harsh. Wrong again. Kurt had already packed my belongings into boxes stacked neatly in the living room. He wanted this over fast, and I could see it in every efficient movement he made. Mom immediately went on the attack, lecturing him about forgiveness and how marriage takes work, that you can't just give up when things get difficult. Things didn't get difficult. Kurt said, his voice flat as concrete. Your daughter had an affair for 8 months. It was a mistake, Mom insisted. She's completely devastated. You should see her. I'm sure she is. Henley jumped in, then trying a different angle. Look, nobody's saying she didn't mess up, but you have to understand the pressure she's been under with wedding planning and work stress. I watched Kurt's jaw tighten slightly. So she dealt with stress by sleeping with her coworker for 8 months. That's the logic we're going with. That's when I spoke up, desperate to control the narrative. It wasn't 8 months. It wasn't that many times. Kurt pulled out his phone and started reading dates from hotel receipts like he was reading a grocery list. March 15th, March 22nd, April 3rd, April 17th, May 1st. Stop, I whispered. Just stop. Want me to keep going? I've got through last week. The humiliation was unbearable. Mom put her arm around me while I tried not to completely break down in front of everyone. What about the wedding? I managed to choke out. All the deposits we paid, what about them? We've paid for everything. The venue, the photographer, the caterer. I paid for everything, Kurt corrected. Every deposit came from my account. Henley's eyes narrowed. So you're just keeping all that money? I'm getting refunds where I can. Some places have cancellation fees. That's how contracts work. That's our wedding. I said the words coming out strangled. There is no wedding. I tried one last desperate play, begging him to consider counseling, promising to quit my job to do anything to save us. What if I cut all contact with him? What if we move somewhere new? I'll do anything. Kurt looked at me with such cold disgust that I actually stepped back. What if you have enough self-respect to stop begging someone who doesn't want you anymore? The words hit like a physical slap. Even Henley flinched. At the door, after we'd loaded all my boxes into Henley's car, I stopped and turned back to him. I really did love you. I still do. You loved what I provided, Monington, he said. There's a difference. I started to say something else, but Mom pulled me out before I could make it worse. What I didn't know was that while I was trying to salvage my relationship, Kurt was about to detonate a nuclear bomb that would destroy everything else too. He'd found Colt's wife on social media and decided she deserved to know the truth about her husband. 2 days later, my phone rang from an unknown number. It was Colt, and he was furious. You didn't need to blow up my marriage, he hissed into the phone. That was between me and my wife. You had no right. This is going to destroy my kids. Kurt had sent Colt's wife everything. Messages that used his real name, some of the photos, a complete timeline of our affair. She'd confronted Colt that same day. Then my phone started going crazy again. My family all messaging me about how cruel and vindictive this was, how I just ruined an entire family, how those poor children were going to suffer. I only responded to one text from Mom. His wife deserved to know who she married. Same way I deserved to know who I was about to marry. She called immediately. I didn't answer. Henley called. Didn't answer. Then I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. This is your father. We need to talk face to face. Dad met me at some coffee shop downtown the next day. He looked exhausted, like he'd aged 5 years in a week. I'm not here to defend what you did, he said, without preamble, and I'm trying to figure out what happens now. What happens now is I move on with my life. Is that what you're calling this? You're living on your sister's couch. I wanted to argue, but he was right. I had nowhere to go, no savings, no plan. She wants to know if there's any chance, he continued. No, don't you think? Answer is no. No second chances, no trying again, no staying friends. We're done. Dad studied my face for a long moment. You know what's weird? I actually respect him more now than I did before all this. The comment stung more than it should have. He's got backbone, Dad continued. Wish I'd seen that before you decided to throw it all away. After he left, I sat there finishing my coffee, scrolling through social media like the masochist I'd apparently become. Kurt had already changed his relationship status to single. Meanwhile, Colt was in the middle of a messy divorce. His wife had taken the kids to her mother's, and he was blaming me for everything going wrong in his life. The man I'd risked everything for turned out to be a complete coward who couldn't even own his choices. When his wife found out he was still texting me after their confrontation, she kicked him out permanently. Now he was living in some extended stay hotel, seeing his kids every other weekend, and acting like I'd somehow forced him into 8 months of affair. 4 months have passed since that night, and I'm still sleeping on Henley's couch because I can't afford my own place. Kurt kept the apartment we shared, got most of the wedding deposits refunded, and from what I can see through mutual friends, he's already dating someone new. Not someone young and flashy, but this woman from his gym who actually seems to appreciate his methodical nature and financial stability. Meanwhile, Colt's divorce was finalized last month. His ex-wife got the house primary custody and a hefty chunk of his paycheck in child support. He's struggling to make ends meet in that depressing hotel room, and the last time he texted me, it was to blame me for seducing him and ruining his family. My family has mostly stopped taking my calls after I kept insisting that Kurt telling Colt's wife was vindictive revenge. My friends are tired of hearing me complain about how unfair everything turned out. The truth is, I miss the excitement more than I miss either of them. I miss feeling wanted and desired and like I was getting away with something dangerous. Now, I'm just another single woman pushing 30, starting over with nothing to show for 4 years, except some jewelry and a lot of regret about getting caught. I've tried dating, but every guy I meet either wants something casual or runs when they hear about my recent complicated breakup. The worst part is the loneliness, not just being single, but realizing that I'd built my entire identity around being desired by multiple men, and now I have none. I started therapy not because I think I was wrong, but because everyone keeps suggesting it. Even my therapist keeps pushing me to examine my patterns and take accountability, and which feels like another way of saying everything was my fault. Look, fine. I cheated. I lied. I planned a wedding while sleeping with another woman's husband, but Kurt pushed me to it with his suffocating need to control everything, his complete lack of spontaneity, his ugly polo shirts, and his pathetic attempts at romance. What kind of man lets his fiancée walk all over him for 8 months without even noticing? Between us, maybe I deserved someone who actually paid attention, someone who made me feel alive instead of like I was slowly dying of boredom. But apparently, wanting passion in your relationship makes you the bad guy, and being a weak, oblivious simp makes you the victim everyone rallies around. The truth is, I'm not sorry I did it. I'm sorry I got caught.